There we go.
Called over the meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee for May 6, 2024. Please note the deputy clerk has taken roll and we have a quorum. First on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the April 1st, 2024 meeting. Could I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Have a motion by trustee Bogie and a second by Mr. Tricky. Are there any corrections or additions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Minutes have been approved. Next, I present ordinance 28-24, variance from commercial sign area regulations, 9733 North Alpine Road. We have a motion and a second.
So moved.
Have a motion by trustee Stromberg and a second by Mr. Tricky. Can we have staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. The Mr. Car Wash that's under construction on North Alpine, just south of Chick-fil-A, is seeking this variance in order to have more signage on the property than our code allows. This property is adjacent to roadways on the north, the east, and the west. And if Rose Lane on the east and Kimber Drive on the north were public roadways, this variance would not even be necessary. But Alpine Road on the west is the only public roadway that this property fronts. So only 166.37 square feet of signage can be permitted here because the maximum signage area is based on the length of public road frontage. The signage proposed is not outrageous. Most of it is necessary to direct customers navigating around this car wash use. And staff recommends approval of the variance to allow up to 481.68 square feet of sign area as proposed, with conditions that signs conform with the plans that have been submitted, and the brightness of the channel letters that will be on a canopy where the cars enter underneath that canopy not be too bright. These channel letters will face the apartments to the east because that's the direction that the cars will enter from. And the brightness will need to conform with our recently adopted commercial lighting standards, which means it cannot exceed 0.2 foot candles at that eastern property boundary. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval of the sign variance with these recommended conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ordinance 28-24 will go to the May 20th board meeting with a positive recommendation. Next is ordinance 29-24, variance from commercial fencing requirements 7817 North 2nd Street. May I have a motion and a second? A motion from Mrs. Miller,
Second.
second from trustee Stromberg. We have staff report, please.
Yes, thank you. The applicant, Mr. Tricky, has purchased and improved this multi-tenant commercial building at 7817 North 2nd Street, and part of the improvements included removing a structure and expanding the parking lot. Our code does require effective screening where commercial lots abut residential properties, and although there are some new plantings along the north and south property boundaries, it's not really providing effective screening the way that a fence would. However, requiring a fence along these boundaries would make it difficult for those adjacent residents to use their own driveways because the driveways are right against those shared property boundaries on the north and the south side. There was no fencing along these property lines previously, and staff is recommending approval of this variance to not require fencing here now, with conditions to require the fencing along the rear of the property on the east side be maintained because that also abuts residential properties back there. And if any trees along the north and the south boundaries are dead or dying, they must be promptly replaced because we do expect that in time these plantings will provide a pretty adequate buffer. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval of the variance with these recommended conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Whose responsibility will it be on the outside of the trees if they encroach upon the driveways? Are the residents able to trim them themselves? Or would it be the business owner?
The residents would be allowed to trim at their property line as long as they aren't trimming the trees to the point that they kill the trees.
Okay.
But that's something that the applicant may want to work out with the property owners if it looks like those trees are in the way of them using their driveways.
Okay.
Any other questions? Could we have roll call, please?
Trustee Stromberg. Aye. Bogie.
Aye.
Mr. Tricky.
Abstain.
Ms. Miller.
Aye.
Chairman Sipes.
Aye.
4 ayes, 1 abstention.
Ordinance 20-24 will go to the May 20th board meeting with a positive recommendation. Next is Resolution 22R24, responding to a zoning application under consideration by the Winnebago County Zoning Board. We have a motion and a second, please.
So made.
Second.
I have a motion by trustee Bogie and a second by Mrs. Miller. Can we have staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. The county area that's 1.5 miles outside of the village's boundary is our extraterritorial jurisdiction area. And if the county is ever considering a zoning application in that 1.5 mile area, we are notified of it. And as a village, we can object to it if we so choose. This is not actually a zoning application, but is a text amendment that Winnebago County notified us of. And we're bringing it to the committee and then to the board for your vote on whether we want, as a village, to object to these changes. This amendment will be considered by the County Zoning Board of Appeals at their meeting on May 14th. So it is going to go to board tonight after it goes to committee. The amendment only changes some terminology and criteria for solar energy facilities and wind energy facilities in the county to be consistent with recent changes to the state statute. In the county, these uses were already permitted uses in ag and industrial districts, and they will continue to be permitted in ag and industrial districts. If either of these facilities are proposed to locate in our extraterritorial area, there would be a public hearing and we would be notified of that hearing, even though they are permitted uses as the state statute requires. If you've looked over the draft ordinance that the county provided to us that are in your packets, you can see that not a whole lot is actually changing with the regulations. And again, the county is required to make these changes because of changes to the state statute regarding these types of facilities. So staff is recommending that the village take no action to object to these text amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The Resolution 22R24 will go to tonight's board meeting with a positive recommendation. Next on the agenda is reports. Are there any reports? Seeing none, next is public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the committee for the good of the village? Seeing none, next I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion by trustee Stromberg, a second by Mr. Tricky. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.